Thank you so much, Chris. Next, committee
Go
members.
ahead and go with you. Samantha, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Samantha Boge. I'm a lawyer, although I don't really haven't represented clients for quite a while now. And now I do some arbitration work part-time, and make face masks and chase grandchildren when I'm allowed to get near them, which is not much these days.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Hey, good morning, Shelley. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Michelle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good morning. My name is Michelle Burt. It's always a pleasure to be here with the CHSP. And I think I know everyone except Chris. Hi, Samantha. Good to see you.
Thanks. Same here.
Best wishes to the judge. And love you and Anita sometimes. And let's see, it's someone else that I don't know yet. But anyway, I own Favorite Traveling Tours.
Okay.
And just excited to be here.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And next is Ms. Margot.
I am Margot Thomas. I'm the program director for Take Stock in Children at Tallahassee Community College. This is, I believe, year 6.
Probably more than that, Margot. Probably going on 10 years, Margot.
I don't think it's been 10 yet.
You
but
think maybe 7.
yeah, I want to say maybe 2013 or 14 was when I started, so maybe 7.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
Good to have you. So, and we're not worried. One of my mottos, we said this is going to be a small team, and we don't mind that it's a small team starting out. And quite frankly, as long as it's at least 4 people, we're fine. As far as we narrowed it down anyway, so that only veterans could participate this year. For a couple of reasons. Obviously, we couldn't do training. That was very essential. So we didn't want to use new volunteers. That would not be fair to them or to the agencies. And also, we also know that you're going to be making a lot of critical decisions with very tight budgets. And so we also know that between each committee, you're going to have some committee people, because we do move people around so that we can keep that freshness of perspective. Some folks on the team will know these programs inside out, some won't, and that's a good thing because you don't have any preconceived concepts when you start making your decisions and recommendations. So this is a new frontier for everyone, so we're going to do our best that we can. I know that we have a very tight schedule, so Chris, once we start, you are going to be basically in charge of your committee throughout the day. And you also, who's your timekeeper? I think that's Michelle, right? Michelle? Are you who's the timekeeper on your team?
It's Samantha.
Samantha. Oh, Samantha. She'll keep a tight, okay, Miss Samantha, you'll keep she's a great volunteer, been doing this for quite a while. She's mainly been doing the basic needs and emergency services team. So this is a new team for her. But we'll be on a pretty tight schedule. We have actually consolidated everything, as you've seen through the literature, the memorandums that we've been sending out. The agencies will not be able to do a formal program and budget presentation as we've done in the past. With that, we still have a 2-day team for children's services. Even without that, I don't know what we'll do when we actually go back to site visits. How these teams stay to 2 days is going to be quite creative. But right now, we want to try to limit the time because we know it's very cumbersome and challenging to stay on a computer all day long. The agencies basically have 20 minutes to present to you today. They will respond to questions. Chris, have you had a chance to look at the agency's questions? And I think they were sent to all the
participant has joined the meeting.
Who is that? Is that Susan?
Hello.
Give me a second. Who's caller number 3?
I am Jan Tucker Petway. I was also on the web waiting for admission, so I just decided to call in.
Yeah, I was just responding to your email. Give me just a second. I have to move you back to the lobby. It's not time for your Q&A yet.
Oh, okay. I thought it said 8:30, so I'm sorry.
No, at 9 o'clock. So anyway, going back to what I was trying to say, what we were saying before, Dan.
Pat, you were asking if I had seen the questions. I saw the questions come from our team, but was there something specifically from the agencies that I missed?
No, just from the team. So I think Chrissy start, because the pivotal point has some questions. So we'll start with, so for every single agency, you should have questions. Now, as far as if they were submitted by the committee in advance, and we realize obviously that was challenging for you guys. You're the first ones on. That means you had the least amount of notification to do all of this. So we appreciate it that you did the best you could with the time frame that we have to operate this year. So looking at those questions, making sure that they're not redundantly asked. So we only have 20 minutes. So I think it's very important for us to, and Chris, when you start out for every committee, we've got to move fast. Briefly, quickly say your names to the agencies, the committee members, so you can acknowledge who you are. I think that's important. And they can quickly tell you who's representing. The ED himself can introduce himself and tell you who is in his committee or her committee, representative of the agencies, but we don't have time to do all those formalized, drawn out introductions. And then we'll just say, you can just say they're all city and county CHSP staff are also on the line, but don't waste time trying to introduce us to everybody. We're in the background. We're background people anyway. So that the most important people are yourselves as well as committee members, and then the agencies representatives. So you would and just really just go right into question. Let them know up front, Chris, that we want them, once they've answered that question, we want them to be brief and concise. And that once one person in the agency has answered the questions, there's no need necessarily for other representatives to answer the same question unless they're adding some value to that response. Because we got to make sure, as difficult as it will be, but we got to try to get the most information that we can for doing each site visit, because ultimately you will be making some strategic decisions about funding. Okay.
I just want to say one thing as well, and Chris and the other committee members, it's important that we not rush them along, but move them along, because you may have additional questions and you just need to make sure that your questions are answered before the 20 minutes is over.
Right. Thank you, Anita. The other part is that, which adds even more challenge to this 20-minute cycle, is that they need to respond to you and tell you how will they basically implement their program considering the COVID-19 virus. How will that affect their ability to actually implement and operationalize their programs? That's going to be a key point too. That's why I think it's very challenging this year to make decisions under the environment that we're in, but this is reality that we face. Any questions or concerns?
Well, and it's going to be real tough to get through some of these different questions that came up from the team, as well as allow them. I would think if you ask that question about COVID, most people are going to take 5 to 10 minutes just to answer that.
And they only got 5 at the most. And even that is,
right.
And we can't give them 10 minutes to answer that one question. Okay.
Right.
I also want to let me let you know one thing too, that we actually opened, because of the COVID virus, we not only extended the CHSP deadline, but we opened up the application again so the agencies could actually amend their applications and include any other information they needed to. So they did have a window to do that. Excuse me. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. No, that's fine. I'm trying to get in my head some notes here for how quickly we can get through this, because with 20 minutes, I mean, introductions,
I know.
you know, hopefully only take 1 or 2. I mean, I can even.
Well, the reality is that we can't, you know, we really can't count it against them for the time, for the timekeeper, Samantha, the time clicks in once you guys finish your introductions, to be honest with you. We have a 10-minute window between presentations, but really the time kicks in once you do your introductions, and then you could, and then the clock starts and we need to let the agencies know that up front when we're doing our, you know.
Do that.
Yes, please, Samantha. Kind of let them know the time restraints and it's, yeah, please. Any other?
Did you want Virginia to go ahead and talk about, were you done with all of
Oh,
that?
yeah, please, Chris. Yeah, go ahead, Virginia. You got the floor. Thank you.
Chris is more important. Chris, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, I'm just,
Perfect.
my only concern is timing, but we're going to push this along because it's what we have to work within. So we'll do the best we can.
So I can't really share my screen and everybody see this, because if I share my screen, it's going to bump everybody and all you're going to see is yourself. But if you scroll a little bit down towards the bottom, you'll have a bunch of different circle icons that pop up. So I just want to give everybody a quick tutorial. If you know this, please just ignore what I'm saying. The very first button is the mute button. There's a lot of feedback considering there's going to be a lot of us on here. So if you are not speaking, just please mute yourself. Unfortunately, we're going to start talking and forget we're muted. Sorry, I just clicked on mine. If it's full red, you're muted. If it's gray, you're not muted. For the agencies that are coming in, we have asked them to message Anita and myself so that way we can unmute them, because we don't want everybody talking at one time. Because again, there's going to be feedback. The next button is the video. If you had to walk away, especially during break time or lunchtime, I highly suggest you leave this on. Just turn your camera and mute yourself. Just that way you have some privacy. If you can't turn your camera off, just put a Post-it note or something over there. But that's how you turn your camera off. The next button I believe you all have is a participant. It's a little person with some lines. If you click on that, you can see who's in the meeting. I'm not sure if y'all have the participant pane. I asked that y'all did just in case you needed it. The next one is a little bubble blurb. If you text a lot, you'll recognize this button. So from there, you can actually chat with myself. If I recall correctly, the very first thing it'll do auto is everyone. So please be careful. If you just want to send it to somebody specific, one of your fellow colleagues on the volunteer, city person, whatever the case be, you can do it from there. It is private if you do it that way, but considering the meeting is being recorded, all that gets transcribed. I will not be submitting the chats for public record because we're not really using that to use funding. I know that's just communication. The next option you all will have, let me close on mine because it's getting pretty tight. So you should have, it looks like 3 buttons or 3 dots all in one row. If you ever start throughout the day to start having issues, because WebEx does take a lot of broadband, and specifically it's the audio portion. So if you start to realize your internet's bogging down, you can always click on that button and do audio connection. Sarla's using that right now. So when you hear her talk, you'll see it's pretty clear. But what it will do is keep your video on your laptop, computer, whatever you're using, but it'll send the audio to your phone. That way it clears up a lot of your bandwidth. And that way too, if you're starting to have different audio connections, because sometimes when there's a lot of us on here and the bandwidth is bad, we start to sound like transformers. So that's another reason why we try to keep it muted. But there's different things that you can do in there, but that's pretty much it. If you're having any issues, I can try to help you. I'm not the best at Apple products, but I'll try. But that's really it, just a quick little tutorial unless anybody has any questions.
I don't think so. I'm still trying to get set up here between multiple screens in my office, which is a pain, but it is what I'm having to deal with.
And please be patient with me. I locked the meeting so that way nobody can keep coming in. But just be patient with me as I try to get folks in and out the meeting. So I'll try to make it as smooth as possible.
So Pat, with team one starting at 9 o'clock, what time do you want agencies to start coming in, to start bringing agency members in so we can start at 9?
Yes.
You're muted. You're muted, Pat.
Oh, I am. Oh, Virginia, that's up to Virginia. So I'm thinking, Virginia, what are you thinking about 5 till, which is soon?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Now, do we want to keep that same format throughout the day?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
Virginia, I just tried to join the meeting and it says 8:30, but it's still not letting me in to see.
Okay. Let me click back
It
over.
said it's been restricted.
Oh, yes, I locked it. Give me just a second. I am so sorry. Try again. I just unlocked it.
Just some more.
All right.
It looks like it's letting you patch through.
Yeah. Whoop.
Yeah, see, those are the fun noises.
Right. All right, so this here. Now, I don't know if my audio is now coming through the computer.
It is.
Oh, hang up. All right.
Chris Holly.
Has left the meeting.
Okay, so far, is anybody having any gargling sound, transformer, anything that's not clear? Okay, awesome. We're gonna cross everything and knock on wood, it stays that way.
All right. This changes the view.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Chris. So if everybody, I believe it's automatically on active speaker. If you go to the top right-hand corner under where it says connected, if you want to see everybody, you can do grid mode. That's what I tend to keep it on so I can kind of see all the actions. If you want it on active speaker, your screen will flip every time somebody starts speaking to the current person, whatever noise is in the background. And then you can split it between active speaker and video, but those are the different preferences you have for your layout.
Yeah, I think the grid is a lot better, more user friendly.
All right, so it is 5 till, so I am about to start letting Pivotal Point in since they start at 9.
All right, Chris, you're on, okay? If you need me, let me know.
All right, Pivotal Point, you have been entered into the meeting.
Mark Scott
Has joined the meeting.
Chris, once they're here, we can start, okay?
Good morning. Do we have Pivotal Point on the call? Can you hear us loud and clear?
Yes.
Good morning. And who do I have the pleasure of speaking with this morning?
I don't know if everybody's here.
The joys of technology.
Hello, Jan. How are you, Jan?
Is Selena or Zach on?
So much for technology.
Selena?
You're muted, Selena. Unmute yourself.
Okay. All right. Hi, Selena. Selena, how are you doing? And hi. Who else is coming on to represent your agency, Selena?
There's a caller 3 and a caller 4.
Okay, so we have Mark Scott. You should have Tashina LaFleur and Mike.
Okay. I would suggest that your representatives, I don't know if you have the capacity, but if you want to make sure that we can see you so that you, I think it would be helpful for your agency if people can actually see you. You might want to instruct your people to show themselves on camera.
2 people are calling in, Pat. They're on.
Okay, fine.
So
So
I'm going to try and log in. It said it wouldn't let me in because it said only people, the meeting has already started when I tried to join by video, but I will try again. So I just did the phone. It would not let me in, but I'm trying again.
Mark, yeah, the meeting was locked. You can go ahead and try again. It'll let you in.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we also have another caller. So Mark, I have you. Can the other caller speak right now? Jan, are you still on the phone?
I see Jan's video.
Okay. There's a caller 3. I don't know who it is. If you don't call it out, I gotta move you. All right, you're being moved.
All right, I think, can we go ahead and get started? Do you all feel comfortable with who we have on the call?
I am sending a text to my other 2 members.
And we can go ahead and get started and at least get through the introductions piece so we don't, I know we've got a limited time frame, so.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for doing this. I know under the circumstances, we would appreciate and would much rather be doing this face-to-face and being able to have a much longer dialogue, but given the circumstances, we're doing the best that we can, and I think everyone understands that. So briefly, my name is Chris Holly. I'm the team lead for this morning, and we'll just quickly go ahead and go around real fast and let the other team members introduce themselves.
Okay.
Do we have a good order? Who wants to kick it off? Michelle?
Samantha, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, Michelle.
I'm Samantha Boge.
I'm Margot Thomas.
And I think that's our team. Other than that, you also have some CHSP staff and some city staff members and county staff members that have joined or that are on the call with us. But what we'll do is we have 20 minutes. We have a timekeeper that will try and keep us moving as quickly as possible. As we ask some of the questions, we would appreciate you all trying to keep them as succinct and direct as possible, given the short time frame that we have. So with that, I've got some questions that have been submitted from our team members. So we'd like to address those first. And then if there are other questions that pop up, we'll handle those as they come along. So would you like to wait for another moment for your team, or would you like us to go ahead and get started?
I think we can go
I
ahead.
wonder if we can just let them, yeah. I'm worried that they don't know they can join by phone, and they did the same thing I did, but that was a problem. But I'm logging on now. There we go.
In person. Jan, Mark, Mike's on the call.
Well, let's go ahead and begin with, I think the basic question that we're going to be asking a lot of the applicants today is more geared towards COVID-19 and the services that you all provide and everyone handling that differently. But would you mind talking a little bit about how you all plan to and if we can ask, you're not
Excuse me.
your line.
Excuse me. I think I need to start the time when everyone's ready. No one's said definitively if we're ready.
Ready to start, and let's make sure you're not speaking. Make sure you're muted so that we can stop the surround sound, but we're ready to begin the process.
Then you have 20 minutes.
Okay. Question about COVID-19.
And please, if you could introduce, just give us your name and when you're responding.
Okay, I'm Selena Richardson, and the first question was regarding COVID-19 and the impact on the future success and metrics of the Character Center program. We had questions. For the Character Center, the COVID-19 is another stepping stone we'll utilize to navigate how to successfully reach the students most in need. We're currently in the process of revamping our summer program for rising third graders. Originally, we do a face-to-face program. We're going to transition to a virtual learning program. We're starting with a 2-hour-a-day program, and we'll transition to a 4-hour-a-day program as needed. We're generally open to all students K through 5th grade, and unfortunately, right now at this juncture, students will have to have the technological capacity to participate in our virtual learning program. We're right now working on identifying a possible or a few safe community locations, access and computers that students can utilize to access our program if they don't have that technology at home. But again, we have to make sure that it's following the COVID-19 rules. So we're currently in the process of transitioning, and our summer program will be a pilot for how our fall program will look if they continue services that are virtual. We're also in discussions with our current schools to determine how the program services will be provided and how we will evaluate student success in the fall. So at minimum, our partnership with the schools will be continued. We will have access to their report cards for our participants who register and receive services. Our metrics may shift a little. So right now we evaluate disciplinary. We'll probably evaluate attendance because that speaks to character and responsibilities. Standardized testing may be removed, but we'll put more emphasis on student meeting grade level benchmarks, achieving a 3.0 GPA and being promoted. But the overall goal of increasing student academic achievement won't change. In fact, one of the things that we notice is that the learning gap in addition to virtual during this fourth quarter, if we weren't provided normal instruction, may actually get a little bit worse. So we hope that we're able to continue to provide the services the upcoming school year so that students will still be promoted. The second part of that question is, could your program work and be effective if you were to go for a virtual learning program? So this is a learning curve for all of us. And right now our teachers have developed their own virtual classes and their own curriculum for the Character Center summer program. We are in the initial stages of enrolling students, and our discussions have been how effective to serve students virtually. So our niche has been our capacity to support the schools by targeting those students in need. So the group who technically aren't learning at the best in a group classroom setting, and they aren't meeting their grade level benchmarks. And we're mostly working with students who are level 1s and level 2s, which are students who are at an F and D level, in an effort to bring them to a high level 2 or 3, which is a C. So the standardized testing did make the student identification process much smoother because they were identified prior to the start of the summer program. And so now what we're doing is we're testing how will our virtual classrooms look. Will the teachers triage the students to ensure everyone is learning at almost the same pace virtually? Will students who are level 1 take classes on Monday and Wednesday, level 2 on Tuesday and Thursday? Will we have 1 hour for level 1s in the morning and another one for level 2s in the afternoon? So these are how we are looking to transition our work to make sure we're still reaching everyone. And lastly, If so, which line items on your budget will have to be adjusted to accommodate for these changes? And as we transition, of course, there will be budget implications. The thoughts we discussed included having increased teacher hours for the teachers who are teaching the number of students virtually. Now the number of students could potentially increase. Of course, that means, will we have to put more money into maybe a different platform that can host more students? And again, we really won't have a definitive answer to that until we transition into how our student classrooms look. Because again, we may say we only have 15 at one time, but there are 15 level ones and then another group that's 15 level two. So right now we're trying to determine as well in the fall if our students that are being served will be served by only our certified teachers or both our certified teachers and activity leaders who are on 2 different pay grades. So how will that look? So yes, we know there will be budget implications, but one of the things that we're doing is trying to work with the school to see if they'll be able to allow the students to use their internet access that they have on the buses for the Wi-Fi hotspots. Will our program shift to free and fee-based because we'll have more students that are able to get online now? So we really can't make a definitive answer to that until we see how our summer program works, but making sure that we stick within the parameters of the budget as always and provide the best services that we can.
Okay, thank you. That was very thorough.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to be quick.
No, it's okay. So that was very well done. There's a couple questions that our team has submitted, and my team members, if I don't get to them, I'm going through here, and I think I've organized them a little bit, but if I miss something, please feel free to chime in. One question that was raised was related to other organizations providing services, and
Yes.
it looked. And is that something that you look to partner with, or FAMU, DRS, and their Freedom School or other programs?
Well, the nature of our program that we provide on schools is not duplicative of any other services. So what we do is our partnership is specifically with Leon County Schools right now. The advantage of doing that is to make sure that at Bond, Appalachian, Oak Ridge, and if we're providing to target those specific kids on those specific school sites that need the help. So we typically the schools or the site coordinators identify the students that need help. They put them through our program, and then after they have our services, they kind of go into other school activities. So we're not duplicating anything that anyone else is doing because our program, in a sense, is like a mini program within the schools. Now, we're always open to partner with other agencies and organizations and provide our academic and character education services, but the way that we've kind of couched ourselves within the schools leads itself to non-duplication of services.
Okay. We can get into, there's some specific questions about the budget and some of the outcome figures.
Yes.
Would you be ready to answer those, or is that someone else on your team?
I'm ready.
All right, so there was a question about professional fees in the budget and an explanation, if you don't mind, and the basis for that calculation.
Okay, the professional fees are for our site coordinator, the certified teachers, and the activity leaders who are currently working with Leon County Schools. So the basis for calculation, and I'll try to do it as succinct as possible. The site supervisor receives $25 an hour, and she works an average of 24 hours a month during the school year, which is 36 weeks, and 80 hours a month during the summer, which is June and July. So for the site supervisor, you have 120 hours during the school year, 160 during the summer, which comes out to be $7,000. So that's one part. We then have certified teachers, and the reason we use the certified teachers versus using all of our volunteers, because the volunteers do come in and help, is that in the past, we've noticed that when we don't have the quality level of staff we need, we're not able to provide the best services. So as afforded in the budget, our certified teachers make $25 an hour. They work an average of 20 hours a month during the school year and also 80 during the summer. So they have a total of 360 hours at $25 an hour. And the budget is for 5 because originally we have 1 teacher at Appalachia, 1 at Bond, 1 at Oak Ridge. We want to increase that to Raleigh and Rudiker. So their budget alone is $45,000. So that's for the certified teachers. The last piece are the activity leaders. the activity leaders are needed to support what the teachers do. In essence, what we do is we'll have a class of at least 15 students who almost are working one-on-one. So you'll have the certified teacher providing services, the activity leader is helping, and the site supervisor navigates throughout all the classes to make sure that everyone is receiving instruction. The activity leaders are paid during the after-school program. So they only make 200 hours, they only work 200 hours during the school year at $15 an hour. And again, that's for 5. So you have $15,000. So the actual total is $67,000, but we were only requesting $51,565 from CHSP. And during our strategic planning meeting, the board of directors, we are trying to look at different ways to generate income. So whether that's fundraising, whether that's grant writing, whether that's private donations. So we were on the path to ensuring that this extra $15,000 would have been covered. And then if not, of course, as the youth may not provide services at one school or another, now it's going virtual, it may look totally different, but that's the basis for the professional fees before COVID-19.
Okay. Do you plan on adjusting that in the future based on your COVID response and how?
Yes. Maybe like we said before, right now our teachers are only working for 1 hour. During the summer, they'll be doing 2 hours. If after school, they can go to 2 hours. And instead of me having one activity leader and one teacher, I have 2 teachers. The teachers may be amenable to bumping down from $25 an hour to $20 an hour. And so what we always do every year is adjust according to our budget how our program looks, but we try to make sure we're keeping the services the same and providing more services than what we usually anticipate, because we always have more kids that need the help.
And I've already heard, my wife's a teacher, and I believe the rumors are that there will be more children homeschooled after all this is said and done. I know more parents are looking into that.
Yes.
There's a question here about, has a succession plan been completed to encourage ongoing sustainability of the organization, and if that's available for review?
Our organization has been working diligently for the past few years to ensure that we have an adequate succession plan. It's interesting because this question kind of comes up every year, which is good for us because every year we're always thinking of, how does it look? And what we're doing now is we're developing our capacity as we've done, but we're doing that more so to ensure that we have consistent leadership that can be brought from within to make sure that our program is sustained. So right now, at this juncture, we can ensure a seamless transition in leadership if necessary. And we do have a basic operations manual, but now we're going to work on actually developing a succession manual per se. So in light of the question, we're going to come up with clear, concise, and a detailed plan, particularly as we navigate through COVID-19, because now you're talking about we're in a totally different learning arena than we thought we would be. So how will we transition from traditional to virtual? Who would our key leadership individuals be? If they're not there, how does this look? So we have a cookie cutter operationals manual, but now we're going to develop a much more succinct plan. So I can't say that right now that's available for review the next months, because that the report we're going to work on.
Okay. And I don't know, that would be up really to the team if, and really if you would allow it, if we could see the basic operation manual. That would be up to you if you're willing to share it, and if the team, if they were interested in reviewing it, that would be up to you.
So if they would like to review it, I can totally upload it. It may be large. I may have to use the Dropbox, but I can upload it for review.
And that's something that could be shared with the team if that's additional information that they're interested in seeing. We had a question about the name change.
Yes.
What brought that on? And
well, when we began our program back in 2004, we utilized the Big-Headed Beaver and Friends, which were mascots. So we had the Big-Headed Beaver, we had the Rude Rabbit, Talkative Turtle, and we actually used those to go out and motivate students academically, to encourage the 3rd graders to pass the FCAT, which is now the FSA, and we actually did full-fledged mascot shows to teach character. As we transitioned into a new learning phase, we realized that academia changed. So the mascots were not as effective as the one-on-one academic instruction. But the one thing that we want to make sure that we kept woven throughout the midst of everything was character. So we found ourselves changing the name from the Big Headed Beaver and Friends because we really don't do the mascot shows anymore, to the Character Center, because that provides the more intensive academic / character education services. And from a marketing perspective, the board has also agreed that the name change speaks better to what we do as an organization.
Okay. We've got two other, and I think you addressed some of them related to the virtual learning platform in the fall, should schools continue to remain closed. But how do you, and there's a question here about the target of new participants if you do receive the funding, and I know you mentioned Ryan Rudiger. Is it 30 new participants? Is that what your goal is, or how?
So
that's
yes,
depending on a lot of outside.
Okay, that one is specifically for Riley and Rudiger. One of the things that we try to do, because of how we provide our services and who we provide them to, we try to target those students that have the clearer identified need as far as gaps in services and academics. So when we do our needs assessment, which I presented, it shows how Riley and Rudiger are behind other students on the learning curve. So what we try to do every year is look at how can we reach those students who are most in need. So our original thought was to, of course, target Riley and Rudiger with those 30 extra participants with 15 in each school, because they would be the ones who, failing a little bit further than the other students in different schools. Now, again, with COVID-19, that may look differently, because now we don't necessarily have to just target the students within the schools, because the transportation isn't going to be an issue because it's virtual. But again, they would still have to follow the same rules where we would have to get access to their report cards. We'd have to develop partnerships with their site coordinators. So we just anticipated Riley and Rudiger, but that 30 may change, and it may be 50. Yeah.
Thank you. So we've got like 4 minutes, I think, Samantha. How are we sitting? If my clock is right. If there are other questions from the team, I'd like to ask that. There was one other that I missed about board diversification.
Yes. Now, one of the aspects that we've talked about with our board, and it's funny, we just had that discussion during our strategic meeting, is how do we grow? How do we continue to succinctly look as though we are actually not just an organization that's targeting one population? So one thing that we did talk about is enlisting new members that have different skill sets that are beneficial to the growth of the organization. Of course, we need to look at who those members are, how they're connected to the community, their ethnicity, to make sure that we're looking at the full breadth of the Pivotal Point Enterprises organization. If we're talking about the Character Center expanding into new school sites such as Killarn, such as Deer Lake, if you're talking about our other program, then of course our diversity would change, because those teachers represent those student populations. So we literally just had a discussion in January as to how we're going to diversify, that we are serving our whole community versus just being targeted to where we've been. And that's going to be a process, but that's something that we have discussed.
And that's, I believe, Samantha, we're at like 2 minutes now. Are there other specific questions from the team? Margot? No?
There was one more. Do you want me to answer the question about the 34 students included in that outcomes for the summer program?
Let the committee have their time. Okay. Make sure the committee does not have a question first. Thank you.
Okay.
That was one of the questions.
Okay, you want to answer that one quickly? Okay.
Please.
The 2 measures of success for the 3rd grade students, scores on the FSA ELA, which is required for 3rd grade promotion to 4th grade, and the number of students are promoted to the next grade are both dependent upon the students participating during the whole school year. So the reason those 34 summer students aren't included is because they came in during the summer. So how our is that we have rising 3rd graders that come in, rising 2nd graders, well, 3rd graders and 2nd graders that come in during the summer, but we can't include them in that number because that's a program that they haven't been in for the full year, if that makes sense. So 34 is the total number of summer program participants, but the total program includes 97 third graders from the school year and then the 34 program participants from the summer. So in essence, what we do is we look at third graders for the FSA and promotion because those are the two most important factors that we look at for program participation. Now, the third grade, those rising second graders who are third graders during the summer transition into our after school program as well. So we don't lose that group. They just transition over the upcoming school year.
Right. Okay. Samantha, are you holding up the phone? Is that time?
Has joined the meeting.
That is time.
Okay. I'm sorry I had to go so quickly. That was fast.
I think you did a very good job in answering those questions, and fitting it all into a 20-minute time frame is commendable. So thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
for the services that you and your organization provide. So we greatly appreciate that.
All right.
All right. Everyone, please stay safe. You and yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you guys are doing too.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So our next meeting starts at 9:30.
Yes. So I'm about to hit pause on the recorder for break time.
If anyone needs to use the restroom.
Well, minutes, I guess you could, because it is a recording, but then you stay in meeting mode, okay? So as long as you're, when you actually take an official break, saying that that's a break for your group, your committee members, then we can't talk anything.
Right.
But since this is
yeah, but if someone needs to take a stretch break or something like that, I'd hate to get into a conversation or someone say,
yeah,
let's just go ahead and cut it. Unless we all agree that we want to hang around and then have a conversation, we can do that.
Well, Samantha's already walked away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, who can I see? I would ask that you mute your microphone if you're not currently speaking. That would help us with some feedback issues. And if I could have, and I know I'm looking at many, one person kind of let me know who will be responding to the questions and just your name and title, if you don't mind. And then I can introduce myself and the team.
Elman, Board President.
Barbara, will you be responding to these questions?
I'm sorry?
Will you be responding to our questions?
Dorothy Hinkle, our Executive Director, is the person who will do most of the responding. I will answer things if needed.
Okay. Do I see her on here?
Hello. There,
Oh, okay.
There she is.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. If you all could mute your lines if you're not speaking, that would help with the feedback, like I said. My name is Chris Holly. I'm the team lead for this morning. But we want to keep things as succinct as possible, and we appreciate you all making the time. Obviously, we would much rather do this in person, but this is the world we live in right now. And so we've got 20 minutes, and I know that's not a lot. So especially with your answers, if you could try and keep those as direct and succinct as possible, we would appreciate it. So like I said, my name is Chris Holly. I worked with Leon County for about 10 years before joining the Florida League of Cities, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say. If I've got 4 other team members on the line, if they could introduce themselves, and then we also have some city, county, and CHSP staff present on the meeting as well, and it's being recorded. So
I'll go. I'm Margot Thomas.
I'm Samantha Boge, and I'm your timekeeper.
thank you, Samantha. And then we have.
Are you going to introduce yourself?
Good morning, I'm Michelle Burke.
Thank you. So that is our panel this morning. Pat, did you have something you wanted to say?
You're doing a great job.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay. So one of the questions that we're asking everyone is, given the COVID situation and the uncertainty for the next, several months, how do you plan on that impacting, the mission of your program, and what that response might look like, and how you've looked at those changes affecting you into the fall?
Well, we did have.
Sorry, before you begin, I need to tell you that now we'll start your time, and you will have 20 minutes for all of your response.
Thank you, Samantha. I'll try and be better about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, when the governor of Florida issued the stay-at-home orders, we closed our office because we have several employees that are in high-risk categories, and we honestly did not have contact-free delivery of the services that we provided. So we have been in the process of establishing some new direction for policies for that delivery of service and for the operation of our office that protects our employees and the public at large. So we have started again with all 3 of our programs, but the one that we're talking about this morning. The other thing that impacted us was most of our model is we get referrals from other agencies that are the primary case management or service provider, and they agree to work with the client until they receive the car seat for the child. So a lot of those daycares that we work with were closed or had very limited services. So the referrals for this program obviously went down. We're making those connections again, and a lot of them are. So we have been able to provide a few car seats actually this past week. So I think we've got a new system in place, and we'd like to develop some new partnerships that will carry us forward in this provision of child safety seats.
How have you gone about looking for other partnerships? Is that daycares or other facilities that have remained open or that plan on opening? How's that going?
Well, we've been in kind of a holding mode for the last few weeks, but one of the goals actually for the next year, for this year and the next year, is to make some inroads with hospitals in the area in order to get them as partners. People don't stop having babies, they go to the hospital to have babies, but we may not be getting them at daycare. So we're trying to get the referrals at a different stage in the process of folks being able to provide infant safety.
Did you all see, what was the budget impact some of the COVID of being closed. Sorry, the budget
Yes, our the major fundraiser for us for the year is a collaboration between Young Actors Theater and our agency for a fundraiser evening performance there. And that was scheduled for March 29th. Obviously that got canceled. We were fortunate that we already had some sponsors for it that really sponsored the agency, but they were going to be recognized for their sponsorship at that event. So we're looking for another way to either reschedule that, and they're not back up in operation again, or some other way to recognize the participation of those sponsors and actually do a little more fundraising.
Was that drop in fundraising balance with either your closure or the inability to get some of your product out? Were those some savings that we're seeing?
No, that hasn't affected. We've continued to operate for the portions of our program that we were able to, and we've reopened. We have an apartment complex for affordable apartments for seniors that's continued to operate all this time, plus another program, and this one is operational. It's just that we've had the effects of the close down.
Let me go through those questions that were submitted by our team members that I'd like to get to before we get too far. Were you able to partner with a manufacturer to purchase car seats at a bulk price?
We have not been able to. The initial inquiries into either a manufacturer or a distributor indicated, and this is, I'm new, I just started January 1st. This is before I actually got there, was that the number of car seats that had to be purchased at a discount was so great that there was a storage issue and also a cash flow issue for ordering that many at a time.
Right.
So it's something we'll continue to consider, but it's got to be something that's doable for us.
And then how many clients received car seats last year? I think it was proposed 60 for the next fiscal year.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all that.
How many clients received car seats last year? And additionally, is it still 60 that are proposed for next fiscal year?
Yes, there were 47 received car seats for last year, from the last fiscal year. And we're still anticipating 60 because we do want to expand our partnership. So we're optimistic that we can do that.
And this is based on, I feel like I'm still getting some feedback. I don't know. I'm going to address that. With the new procedures that you plan on putting in place related to the contactless, you still plan on 60 for next year?
Yes, we're hoping with these new partnerships that are the busiest time, I understand, and again, I've not been there through a whole year. It's in late summer, in July, as people are preparing to enroll their children in daycare situations or school and preschool, and so that's when we get the bulk of our referrals. So we're anticipating that, particularly given the loss of income for a number of families, that there will be more need as we go forward in the year.
Okay. I have questions here related to program fees, and a total program fee was listed at $649, and if the fees were $15 per client, were fees for an additional 4 clients waived?
I can answer that one. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, the bookkeeper, and sorry, I don't have a webcam hooked up. When we sell car seats, because it is a sale, when we sell car seats to individuals, we have to charge sales tax. We tell everybody it's $15, but if it is an individual, we take out sales tax. If it's a nonprofit, buying it for someone there, we don't take out sales tax. So for some of them, the fee that we receive is actually $13.95. That's if we do take out the sales tax, and for others, it's $15. So the total number is off, and it is kind of funny looking, but we do charge $15 flat fee to everybody.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Another question related to the program fees. It says program fees is $1,200 and needed some clarification if the proposed client number was 60 or 80 clients. And is this still related to the sales tax issue that you're talking about? Is that where the discrepancy might be here?
I'll take that one. If you look at the budget, we have said that it's at least 60. If you look at the budget for the application year, first application year, it also lists a large increase in fundraising. So we have some ideas to develop some fundraising that's particular for this program. And with that money, we're, as I said, hoping to expand to hospitals, and that will, it might necessitate expanding to other counties as well, because our hospitals serve the region, not just Leon County. So that's the reason that we have 80 anticipated in the budget and 60 in our application, at least 60 in our application.
Okay. I have an additional question here about the diversification of the board and how that's progressing.
It's progressing. I think this is a challenge for all agencies. However, I come from the elder care system, and we've been working towards including people with lived experience of problems associated with disability and dementia, and those kinds of things. And they've been very successful in including people with lived experiences of the programs that they offer. And that's what I would like to do. And I've talked to some members of our board. Again, I've only had 2 meetings with our full board, so this is an agenda topic that is near and dear to me. I've seen it work in other places, and I would really like to work with them. One idea is to have an advisory board. We have not had an advisory board, and to have an advisory board that would initially include people with lived experience of some of the issues that our services are targeted for, and give them some experience and confidence in being on a board and making recommendations to our full board, and use that as kind of a grooming area for putting people on the full board as they gain confidence and want to do that.
May I add a little to that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay. And first of all, I want to tell you that we have been thrilled that Dottie has joined us, but it was January 1 that she came on, and we have had so many things that she's had to deal with. So we really appreciate all that she's offered to us and the guidance she's given us and her knowledge. As far as working with the board, I totally support this idea of an advisory council for us. I think that will be wonderful. And then I also wanted to reiterate that based on our board policies and the way we are made up, we have to have 51% be Lutherans, and then the others are non-Lutherans. So that limits us somewhat in the choices of people that we want to work with. And we always want someone who will be dedicated to our programs, our ideas. And so I really like this idea of having an advisory board and then continuing from there. All right.
Thank you, Barbara. So the advisory board wouldn't necessarily have to be made up of the Lutheran population. Is that what you're thinking? It allows you a little more flexibility?
Correct. Correct.
Do any of my team members have additional questions that have come up through your review or anything like that? I'm seeing no from Margot. No. Anyone else? Samantha, how's our time looking?
You have 6 minutes.
Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, were there any additional comments that Dottie, you, or any of your board would like to make?
I'd just like to add, we talk a lot about safety for the children, but it's also really important that families have these safety seats because a lot of the children have to go to daycare in those little vans that you see running around picking kids up, and they're not allowed to ride in those if they don't have the appropriate car seat. So it's not just people driving their own cars, it's getting kids to educational and social and medical services that will help them thrive.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? I'm trying to look around. All right, with that, thank you. We'll go ahead and do our good work. We appreciate the work that you all do. So thank you very much.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yes,
I messaged Virginia because I wanted a question. I didn't see where to raise my hand. I wanted to ask her a question.
You can put your hand up like this, and I can see it, and we'll make sure you get your question asked.
Do we have time for me to ask Ms. Dottie a question?
Yes, you do.
Good morning, Ms. Dottie. As more of the community more women are turning to midwives. You said that you wanted to extend your partnership possibly with hospitals. Have you considered working with midwives as well?
Give me just a second, Dawn. You'll have to go back through that. I had you muted.
I'll answer for that. I think that's a great idea. I'm sure we'll look into it.
Dottie's unmuted. She needs to.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What I said previously was that I have had conversations with a friend of mine from church who is a midwife, and they are receptive to that idea.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Dottie. Barbara. Mark.
Thank you.
All right. You all have a wonderful morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark Scott
has left the meeting.
Representatives are in the conference room.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Has joined the meeting.
I would ask as we get started that you mute your line if you are not the one speaking. How's the audio? Can you all hear me okay?
I think so. I'm just trying. This is we've been using Zoom, so I'm just trying to get my bearings. Can you hear me?
I can. I can.
So I can hear you.
All right. I think Miss Virginia gave us a little tutorial this morning for our volunteer team here, our review team, but you can change the view. There's a panel up in the top right section that has 4 squares, whether you like to see just one person or everyone that's currently in the room.
Okay. All right, I think I got it.
So we'll briefly do introductions, and then we'll go through some of the questions that have been submitted from our review team. We appreciate you all keeping your answers as succinct as possible. Obviously, we would rather do this in person, but given the circumstances, we're having to, roll with the punches, and we only have 20 minutes. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then we'll finish with our timekeeper. And whoever will be doing the question answering, if you would let us know your name and title, please. So with that, my name is Chris Holly, the team lead this morning. I work for the Florida League of Cities. Been here for 2 or 3 years. Before that, I worked with Leon County for 10 years in a budget and finance background. So with that, Margo?
I am Margo Thomas, and I am the program director for the Take Stock in Children program with Tallahassee Community College.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Burke. I own Favorite Travel and Tours, and this is my 4th or 5th year doing this, and I'm a community.
My name is Samantha Boge. I'm a lawyer and arbitrator and semi-retired, and I am your timekeeper this morning. You will have 20 minutes total, and that will begin now.
Well, good morning. I am Sika Rose Green. I am the Regional Executive Director for Children's Home Society, the Big Bend region, Tallahassee area, and we want to thank you for this time this morning. We will have our team members introduce themselves when they answer the questions, and so we will just go ahead and start with the first set of questions that were sent for the Early Steps program. So the Early Steps program is a program that is operated by Children's Home Society. It is for children and their families, the children ages birth to 3 who are either at risk of developmental disabilities or have developmental disabilities. And so question 1 was regarding the big jump in the budget for the current year. So upon getting this question, we went back and looked at the budget and realized that the budgeted amount in the budget from the state of Florida was incorrect. It reflects 1.39 million. That number should actually be 1.95 million. It should actually be 2.4 million. And so the budget for that program is completely thrown off, which will affect some of the other questions that were asked here as well. So I know that we have an opportunity. If you all have clarifying questions, we would like to be able to resubmit this budget in the next 24 hours because we did not realize that one typographical error threw the whole budget off. So that's the answer to question 1. The normal allocation that we get every year for Early Steps from the state of Florida is 2.286 million. And that is reflected in the current year budget as well as the next year budget. So moving on to question, and I realize you may have follow-up questions. I guess you want us to just move on through, and if you have follow-up questions, you'll jump in.
Yeah, and let's, if there are questions, because I'd hate to get too far and then have to come back, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Yeah, so that question specifically about the budget this year and then what the state's anticipating for next year. With the economy and taxes and certain things being uncertain for the future, do you still anticipate level funding for next year, or do you have contingency plans? Are you already looking at decreases in revenue for future years?
I believe we've already been told that it would be level funding for that early steps program. And I want to say that we've already signed, I'll ask Dina to jump in here, but I think that we've already gotten our contract for next year.
Good morning. My name is Dina Snyder. I'm the Director of Program Operations for Children's Home Society, and we are currently working on the budget for next year. And it'll be, the funding will remain increased just a little bit based on the number of children served. And so we should be able to get funding for the program. But our expectation is for the contract to be signed and executed to be effective July 1st.
Ms. Green, you can continue with the budget discussion.
Okay, so the next question was regarding the request for additional funding through the CHSP process, and I am going to turn it over to Dina Snyder to answer that question.
Good morning again. We recognize that we have requested an increase in funding for the upcoming grant cycle year. And the basis for that was our hopes to be able to have a full FTE for a service coordinator position funded for next year. While we do get funding from the Department of Health, the services that we offer are at no cost to families. And so with the increase in children that we are serving, we are hoping that if we have the funding from CHSP for the full-time position, then the contract dollars that are allocated from DOH would be able to go to services offered directly to families as opposed to the salary. The services that we offer to the families include, at no cost to them, of course, physical, occupational, speech therapy, early intervention services, as well as we try to prepare for them play groups and play days so that they have other families that they can relate with, that they can work with and build supports for themselves, and any assistive technology equipment that the child might be in need of, whether it is walkers or standards or anything of that nature to help them to reach their goals. So if we were to get the allocation requested to cover the full-time position, the total cost of the position, then the money provided from the Department of Health and contract funding would just be reallocated to services directly to families.
Ms. Snyder, can I ask if circumstances prevent us from being able to provide the full amount of funding that you've requested, do you still anticipate bringing on that additional staff person and identifying other revenue sources to support it?
We would definitely try to do so. One of the other funding sources that we can access for the program is Medicaid revenue. As you may or may not be aware, the Medicaid revenue is no longer run through ACA. It is now out for the MMAs. And so it has become a little more difficult for us to be able to allocate Medicaid revenue for targeted case management, which is what we do, because of the different MMAs and how much they are actually allowing to be billable to Medicaid. But our goal would be to try to keep our, through our contract from the Department of Health, the caseload to FTE is 1 in 85. And our hopes, in order to be able to provide better and more accurate face-to-face contact and services to families and to be able to be more supportive of them, our hope is to be able to have the caseload ratio to 1 in 65. So if we were to able to have that additional position funded, then it would allow us to continue to decrease those caseloads and allow us to have better quality services for families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just, and I don't pretend to know your contract and with the Department of Health, but I am very hesitant, at least from understanding municipal revenues and state revenues, looking at what those figures would be in the next year to 2 years. hopefully there is a not as big of a decline as we all are forecasting now, but it's just something to be mindful of, is having contingency plans in place. So, and I think, did we lose Ms. Green?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so you just turned off your video.
No, I think my video just froze because I can see me, but I guess if you can hear me, we'll just continue to move forward. So question 3 was regarding the budget doubling and the reduction of positions. So again, as we mentioned, the budget didn't double. We had some revenue from the state that's missing in that budget. And again, would love to submit the revised budget to accurately reflect last year's budget. And regarding the positions, because I know we're running short on time, no positions were reduced. We're actually in the process of hiring those positions. When we sign our contract with the Department of Health, we agree to hire specific positions. And so it's not a situation where we are riffing or getting rid of any positions. We've been working to get those hired. Don't know if Dina has anything else she wants to add to that, but if you have any questions regarding the staffing, then please feel free to follow up. All right. So
go ahead. Dina, did you have something you wanted to add? I mean, if that's, so the reduction in 4 positions was misreported, is that something that we need to get updated on your updated budget submission too?
Yes. Right. No position should have been reduced. So that may have been a typographical error, but we did not reduce, nor do we plan to reduce any positions in that program. We need those positions in order to effectively run the program.
And I think when we were looking at it, we were looking at the number of actual positions that we had currently hired, as opposed to the number of positions that we anticipated to have in the program as a whole. And right now, we do have 2 of the 3 service coordinators positions that are currently vacant, already able to be starting in June. One of our data management positions that is already vacant as well has already started with us. And then the other one we have currently advertised and are actively interviewing for.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Green, you can continue.
Thank you. So for questions number 4 and 5, Dina will be answering those. The questions state number 4, that every child, CHS states that every child who exits the Early Steps program are on target developmentally. And I think this should be saving or saves the Leon County School District money otherwise spent on special ed, but there was no indication that any child achieved that milestone. So that was question 4. And then question 5 was explain how long-term goal is simply for a child to be assessed before he or she exits the program. So I'll turn it over to Dina to address those programmatic questions.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Can.
I was trying to make sure I couldn't unmute there for a quick second. So in regards to the money saved for the Leon County school systems, so our times we are working with families anywhere from 6 months to up to 3 years. So our goal during that time frame is that we are able to provide as many services for speech, again, occupational therapy, which will assess their gross and fine motor abilities, and then physical therapy, so that when they get to the point of turning 3, we do that exit evaluation. And our hope is that they will be at the point where they have met their milestones and will no longer need to enter the Leon County school system for the VPK program, which is from 3 to 5, which in essence would allow the Leon County school system to be able to reduce the expense that they would have providing those EIP services for the families that come in if we have served them through our Early Steps program beforehand. And I know I'm hoping Sean is on the call. She is one of our program supervisors, and she ran our numbers so that she can provide that information to you if she has them readily available. Sean, are you able to provide the additional numbers?
You hear me?
We can hear you.
Steve Brooks, Program Supervisor for Early Access Program. Yes, I ran a report for the 2018 and 19, and the total closure, we had 526 children we served within that fiscal year, and 12% of those children was transitioned to Leon County schools, and 7% of those children met their IFSP goals, meaning that they did not need Leon County school services.
Sean, do you know if that is an increase or decrease over time?
I didn't do the report last year, but I'm assuming that it is a decrease due to the COVID-19 situation that we are in now. Leon County School, they are unable to evaluate those children and determine them eligible for the pre-K services started. Pre-K program started in August. So I think, yes, it's a decrease.
And that kind of leads me to another question. I mean, I think that, did we get through all the questions submitted?
I have one more, if you want me to go ahead and do number 5, because I know you had a question in regards to COVID moving forward. And so question number 5 for us was explain why long-term goal is simply for a child to be assessed before he or she exits. And that is the long-term goal only because of the time frame that the child spends in our program. So again, the child could be, we only do an exit if a child has been with Early Steps for a minimum of 6 months. So they could be with us anywhere from 6 months by the time we do an exit to up to 3 years, because we serve them from 0 to 36 months. And so our goal long-term is to always do an exit on a child, because not one, it allows us to be able to assess whether our services worked. We do the initial evaluation, which is how they enter. And then we do the exit, which gives us a starting and an ending period to say, okay, well, they were at this point in speech, let's say, and they were able to get to this point by the time they left our program. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing is it allows us to assess the need for additional services. So if we didn't do that exit by the time the child was getting ready to leave the program, we wouldn't know whether they've met their milestones. We wouldn't know whether we needed to refer them to community resources or whether we needed to go ahead and refer them to Leon County school systems. So it becomes our long-term goal, because it's almost at the point where once the child is leaving our program, that's the last thing we do before they exit, and we assess what other resources are out there in our community for them to be able to benefit from.
But this is Samantha Bausch again. But that doesn't let us know if your program's effective. How do you show us? How can you show us that your program has helped these children?
It would be based on their initial entry evaluation and their exit. So we have to understand that there's a lot of the children that we serve have established conditions. And so we assess their milestones based on their individualized abilities. We have some little ones that may not be able to be at the same level as every other regular, let's say, 5-year-olds starting kindergarten. So we look at the point where they start and the point where they leave and measure their progress based on that ability individually for themselves. And if you'd like, since we're going to be doing an additional budget, hopefully if you allow us to submit a budget review, then we can also send you more information on the data for 17, 18, and 18, 19, just to let you know more specifically how many kids came in and where they exited when they left the program, because we do the exit and the entry assesses their 5 domains. So you have sensory growth, fine motor, social emotional, and then their speech. So we know when they were tested in the beginning where they started, and once we do that exit, we know how they leave. And for us, the success is measured individually for the child, but it also allows us to see out of all the kids that we had in the program, how many of these children now have to be referred for additional services. And based on that, we might be able to say out of 100 kids, we only had to refer 25% to either go to community resources such as Head Start or to go to Leon County school systems. And so our percentage there would be where 25% needed additional and the 75% met their goals. But we can definitely run a report to provide you that additional, more specific information.
I definitely think you need to change your application in the future to illustrate these gains right now, there's no indication to me that I've seen, and maybe I've missed it, and you can show me on the application where I've missed it, but there's no indication that anyone is improved by attending your program.
We will definitely look into that. Yes, ma'am, and if allowed, we will provide that information to you.
Just a point of clarification, Pat Holliday's, city CHSP staff. While I think you can go ahead, since there was an error in the budget, upload that in the notes for the agencies regarding making the corrections in the budget. I'm afraid, sorry to tell you, can't give additional information to the application because we can't, because that would be unfair to the other agencies.
That's where I thought you were going to go, Pat, and I agree with that. Samantha, I think that's a very valid point, though, and maybe that's something for your next year's submission, that you look at including that kind of year-to-year comparison or a report like that to provide those additional progress, to help us get a better understanding. Samantha?
Yeah, I think in that from year to year, but also from the difference between or the progress made by the student from when he or she enters the program to when he or she exits the program. I think both those things need to be addressed.
Yeah, that's a measurable outcome that should be reported.
Thank you for the suggestion. Thank you.
Absolutely, we will do that.
Yeah, Samantha,
go ahead.
I think we began at 10. I think 10:20 is where we need to time it.
So we do have one other program that we need to quickly review, and that's the VOCA program. There were 4 questions regarding the VOCA program. Before I turn it over to Kendra Walker, who runs that program for us, I'm going to address question 3 and question 4. So question 3 was about a loss of federal funding. I did go look in the budget. We did not put any federal funding in last year, this year, or next year. So I'm not really sure, Ms. Boge, what that question refers to. And then the last question was regarding an absence of fundraising for the proposed fiscal year. We are in the process of establishing what fundraising is going to look like for the year. We don't do program-specific fundraising. Our fundraising is managed out of our home office through our philanthropy department. And I do believe in our application, we did list all of our fundraising that was done and that is proposed for all of our programs. But I will tell you, we are evaluating how we're going to look at that for next year. And so we just don't know what that's going to look like in light of the pandemic. Right. That's questions 3 and 4. I don't know if Ms. Boge wants to help me understand question 3 and where we reported a loss of federal funding.
Sorry, I cannot recall the application well enough off the top of my head to tell you where that was. So I must be wrong about that. I'm not, I don't think you need to address any more about that.
Okay, so we will go, thank you. We will go to questions 1 and 2. And so I'll turn it over to Kendra Walker, who's our Director of CPT and CAC.
Before we get into that, just a time check real quick. Samantha, where are we sitting with time?
Well, the 20 minutes are up from the first program, but I assume she has another program? No. Oh, the time is up.
Okay, well, if we can be allowed, we'll just submit the answers to the questions for VOCA. We had 2 programs, Early Steps and VOCA, that I believe were supposed to be in this. And so we did answer those questions, and we'd be more than happy to email those to I guess Anita and Pat, and she can get those to you. I'll do that as soon as this is over. And we thank you for your time. I know this is challenging for everyone, us included, and as a first-year executive director on the other side, I understand it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Thank you for your work. Thank you, Dina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Holland.
Issues that you mute your line if you aren't speaking. That would help us. And we appreciate you taking the time, gathering in your case, given the circumstances. So we also understand that we have abbreviated time frame, given only 20 minutes to get through these. So please, as the questions come up and we make the presentation, to keep your responses as succinct as possible. That would help us in the review team. We'll do brief introductions, and then Samantha will be our timekeeper this morning. If you guys have any issues, please wave, let us know if you can't hear or if something's unclear. We need to repeat ourselves. My name is Chris Holland. I work for the Florida League of Cities. I've been here for 2 or 3 years, and before that I worked for Leon County for 10 years in their budget and finance office. And with that,
I'm Margot Thomas. I am the program director for the Take Stock in Children program at Tallahassee Community College, and I believe this is my 7th year with CHSP.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Burt. I'm the owner of Favorite Travel and Tours.
My name is Samantha Boge. I'm a lawyer and now practice part-time as an arbitrator, semi-retired. And I'm your timekeeper, so your time will begin now.
Great. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Tim. And please just begin with understanding with COVID response, how you all will adjust your response to that moving forward through the summer and through the fall, and what that might look like. And then we've got a couple questions I'm sure that you've received from our team, and we can walk through those. But you can take it away.
Yeah, we did. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's service and the volunteering, and especially under these circumstances. The grant review process looks a lot different, but we're glad to be with you. And here with me, I've got Fatima Olavis, Alexander, who does our special needs services, Daryl James, who oversees our parent family community engagement, and then Michelle Roll, who works with our parent engagement parts and in our policy council. And as it relates to COVID-19, just like any other schools with our Head Start programs, we closed to students back in the spring break in March, worked with our parents and families and students over time with distance learning packets, did a lot of work with parent engagement with teachers and family advocates who are our case managers who work with Daryl's team, reaching out to the families, trying to provide them support. We did some food distribution opportunities at all of our centers in our 3-county region. And then now that school is out, we do not do a summer Head Start program. We have applied for and received a grant for substantial investment in terms of COVID-19 response to be able to buy a lot of hand sanitizer, PPE, and everything else that goes along with making sure that our Head Start classrooms are going to be ready for the new school year. We also believe that we're working with our parents and our teachers to talk about what is the new school year going to look like. The restrictions have been removed in terms of the numbers, but CDC still recommends smaller numbers. We're contracted to provide 310 slots in Leon County, and with that, the issue is very difficult because if we were to limit under what initially was in place, we would be cutting our capacity in half without the budget to be able to expand. So hopefully that gives you an overview of the kind of the challenges we're going to be looking at in terms of trying to reopen at full capacity come the new school year, which follows the Leon County school year. Oh, also, by the way, Chris, on the phone, this is what she looks like, is Laura Ward. We had some technical difficulties getting her on. She's part of our finance team. She's actually in Jacksonville right now. So she's on speakerphone, so she will be able to answer some of the budgeting questions that you all have submitted to us.
Thank you for joining us through Laura. Can we go ahead and how would you like to tackle those? From the top, the budget questions specifically.
Yeah.
There was I can jump ahead. There was a question that I had related to the kinds of services that were included for a 443,000 in-kind line item.
Okay, so we have the written questions beforehand, and that kind of relates to one of the other written questions. If I could do these in a more direct way, Chris, if it'd be okay.
Yep.
Samantha issued a couple questions which we can address pretty quickly, and Samantha, I got to apologize to you. The first one was Form 5. Are there really only nine clients and 99 staff? And I got to tell you, that was a complete data entry error on my part. I mimicked, for some reason, I was thinking I was adding the numbers of board members at the time. That is not the correct number. But if you do look on page 18 of your 39-page packet, which is section 1.3, we do list that we were serving 351 students and families through the school year and all their demographic data as it relates to Black, white, male, female, and age group, which is 0 to 5, because Head Start is a pre-K program for ages 3 to 5 years old. So I apologize for that. That's an entry error from my part. You asked about, Samantha also asked about professional fees. How are they computed? What do they consist of? And this goes to the heart of really what we're asking for regarding some of the grant funding. There are 3 types of programs that we're asking for service dollars through this grant application. One is the overlay services. Where unlike any other childcare program, we provide a substantial amount of overlay, including therapeutic services, which include occupational therapy, speech therapy, mental health services. And those services are set, those fees are going to be set by those contractors, providers that we work with. Those fees are based on screenings, evaluations, therapy sessions, parent meetings, and trainings. And we do receive a substantial amount of in-kind contribution from contracted vendors because they will offset either their professional fee, may be a higher hourly rate, and they discount it for us with Head Start. And that's to a distinct advantage to us because we do have to secure about 20% of donated services, in-kind services that goes with our grant. Those fees, by the way, can range from $80 per child for occupational therapy for a 1-hour session, for $192 for speech therapy. Mental health services are $100 per visit. That gives you an idea of the expenses there. And then I think going back to what you were asking, Chris, and what Samantha was asking, which is more specific description of the program. I'm so sorry that we were not very clear on that. Those services that we just talked about, those therapy services that we are able to offer to the kids who show that they need them, that is a significant portion of the dollars that we're asking for here. Daryl manages our male engagement process, and getting men engaged in the early education and processes of supporting families is critical, and he can talk more about that. And then Michelle does our Incredible Years, which is a parent and family strengthening program. 2 classes are going to be funded through that process. Half of our salary is actually paid for the grant in order to facilitate those classes of about 15 parents each. And then when we have those parents go through that program, by the way, Incredible Years reduces the amount of behavioral problems and also increases attendance, and it strengthens the kids' resiliency and readiness for kindergarten. So hopefully that answers a couple of the questions there. And then and I can let them go into more detail, Samantha or Chris, if you have questions about those programs or services.
I still don't quite understand. This is Samantha Beige. I still don't quite understand what it is you're asking for this particular grant money that you've requested. I can't remember the amount right now, but $76,000. What does that fund?
That funds speech therapy, occupational therapy, and mental health, a portion.
And it also funds the male engagement meetings, programs that Tim was just speaking of, where we encourage fathers to be a part of their children's school years. What we do is we do meetings with the men, invite guest speakers, And we also, on Saturdays, we take the men out with their children to places like Sky Zone when it was open. We did bowling, what else? Skating, and we do like breakfast with dad, things to programs to really involve the male with the with their child. It doesn't have to be the biological father. It could be the uncle. It could be the granddad. It could be the stepdad. It's just encouraging.
You're still not telling me, and we're running out of time, so you're still not telling me exactly what the breakdown is of the funds that you're requesting.
So for occupational therapy, it would be 15 students. For speech therapy is 25.
That wasn't included.
That is, it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes,
the request.
So you want the actual amount of funding for each program that we're asking for?
Yes.
I could have sworn that was in there.
That was in there.
Where's the budget?
Tim, Pat,
Yes, ma'am.
I can clarify what they're trying to say. I'm looking at your budget and where it says, for example, compensation, well, professional fees is saying 32,000. And what they're saying is it's saying children's health services providers and child care providers. But what they're saying is not breaking down the, like it's not, there's no formulas in that section. Like how do you come up with that calculation? I think that's what Samantha is saying, that the formulas to like occupational speech, how many kids would that be paying for and what would be the hourly rate? It likes that type of, the breakdown, the real budget justification.
Yeah, well, I apologize if that's not included and it wasn't presented in that manner. And we could, of course, get back to you in a supplemental manner, but we're not prepared to actually run it through right now for you. I'm sorry.
That's okay, because when I'm looking at it, Samantha, in the 76,000 requests, and it breaks it, half of that going to compensation and benefits for the engagement coordinator, and then the 32,000, like Pat was saying, it just breaks it into children's health services and child care providers. But a majority of that, 30,000 for children's health services. And that's where, Tim, I think there's just additional, we're looking for a breakdown of those professional fees and what that.
I apologize for not breaking those down between those, and we will definitely keep that in mind for next time. I don't think we've ever broken it down in a total itemized process before, and definitely a legitimate question. We will just have to include that next time, or get it to you as a supplement by the end of the day.
Well, I think at this point, yeah. The budget is, and then we wouldn't want additional information, but we can go through this. But that was it, Michelle was giving us an idea of, was it 15 students and 25, or what was the breakdown? I'm sorry.
It would be more than that now. It would be probably 35 speech and 25 OT. Yeah.
Occupational therapy, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually 4 sessions each, and then you break it out there, $80 per child.
For $80 per child for OT and $192 for speech. And mental health is $100 per visit for the mental health provider.
Right. We've got a question to the budget related to the miscellaneous and other expenses. I think it was a $565,000 line item.
Yeah.
Yes. I can give you the breakdown on the actual website. It does have it broken down, but when you print it out, it doesn't show it. The staff screening was $1,400. Technology was $18,241. $1,500 was license fees, permits. $2,000 was special events expenses. Dues and subscriptions was $2,500. Advertising was $3,500. And the bulk of these are expenses that are in kind, meaning these are things we would have had to pay for if we had not received the in-kind. And those come from those mental health, the physical therapy, the speech therapy, the occupational, and also the obesity prevention program, which is something else. And one thing I was going to just add that Stephanie asked me to convey is that while our guidelines, I think, are around 10%, we have maybe double what the normal, what that looks like. I mean, we probably have kids that require more services than we're required. So I think that's part of this gap that we're trying to fill. It looks like in the funding, we're asking for about 20% of what we spent to help close that gap.
The other in-kind, the other expenses that technically we're counting in that space include things where we're renting facilities which are discounted for us as well. Those count toward our in-kind as well. And volunteer, yeah, actually, Michelle, go ahead. Another.
We also have our parent volunteers that volunteer on a daily basis. We also have our nutritionists that we count in the in-kind as well. And also our technology PSC, we also receive in-kind from them as well.
That's our private vendor who handles our IT and stuff. I know that Michelle Burt also had some questions. Is she still on the team?
Yes, she is.
Great.
And I just reading her breakdown of in-kind services because that helps us a lot.
So you need more?
No, he said thank you.
Oh, okay, good. So one of the questions was, and this always is an issue to us, we're so sorry for not sharing. I thought we had shared before, but we are not permitted to do fundraising. A Head Start policy regulations, of which there are thousands of them. No Head Start staff members are engaged in these activities during the period when such staff members are employed. Funds may not be solicited, collected, or tabulated during work hours or using Head Start funded equipment, facilities, or supplies during Head Start hours of operation. Head Start staff members may, however, volunteer during non-work time. When they volunteer during non-work time, that gets us into wage and hour issues, so that's a problem there. We are able to put together an annual Golden Apple Gala, which this past year did raise $8,000, but that was done on the side after hours, not with Head Start staff. So that's the regulatory issue of section 75.442 on fundraising and investment regarding management costs. It's a guidance issue that came out in July of 2018. So we can provide a copy of that in a correspondence. The issue of, there's a question that she had regarding intake worker classification and deprioritizing the role of case management. I can't figure out where that's coming from, but that's also doesn't have anything to do with Head Start or the grant application request here. That may have to do with our agency operations. And I don't recall us making any changes regarding our case managers who do our Getting Ahead program or our intake staff who handle paying utilities for our services. Laura, do you have anything on the bus driver considerable pay raise from last year? Because I don't think that was...
Yes, I believe I will tell you that his wage went up from $11.27 an hour to $11.88 an hour through 2 COLA additions that's mandated. But most of what shows on there on the way that this is presented is a result of increased hours. He's doing more than bus driving. He's reading to the kids and facilitating teachers when they need breaks because we have to be in compliance there. So his substitute time has helped with our teacher cost.
Just another quick answer on the issue of, and knowing that you were out of time, is that considering using interns, graduate students, retired educators, we've contacted the Florida State University and FAMU and TCC as it relates to those coursework that they're doing. Interestingly enough, early childhood education has been eliminated at Florida State University. Finding age appropriate, not kindergarten, not K-12, but early childhood education credentials on staff are the issues that we focus on. So we do try to get interns in, and we have used interns in the past, but that program has been eliminated.
You have 1.5 minutes left.
Thank you. So I think we've attempted to answer the questions that were presented to us and also anything on the fly, but we're glad to provide any more offering to you if you have any.
Chris, you're on mute, so they can't hear you.
We're going to go to 4 corners now. He's gone to 4 corners. We're gonna run out the clock.
So the information that I don't believe at this point we're required to receive any additional information for this team. I think you've answered all of our questions. Now, in the future, I think we said a little more detail on the in-kind services would help us understand that a little bit better.
Can I clarify, Chris, just for you to recognize that the CHSP budget is supposed to be only cash. So I noticed you have in-kind in it. That's why the budget is confusing. That's part of the confusion. It should only be a cash budget, not in-kind. I think that's part of the confusion.
All right. Well, I think that's all. Does anyone else on the team have an additional question? Well, thank you very much for you and your team and the work that you do. We apologize for only having 20 minutes to get through this. I know it is difficult. It is challenging for us as well, given everything. So we thank you guys for your work, and please just be safe.
Thanks, Chris. We'll wash our hands. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Is there Virginia?
How are you?
We're doing well. How are you?
Good, good.
We have a minute before we begin,
Okay.
but I can do some of the housekeeping stuff. Will it just be you present on the call this morning?
I'm expecting Stacy Larkin and Mary Wellington. I think both are trying to download the WebEx app. I think this is the first time we've used this over Teams or Zoom. So
Right. We understand that, and they can join at any point in time, and we've got Virginia who can receive those requests when they come in. So we'll go ahead and get started just because we're on such a tight schedule. My name is Chris Holly, and I am the team lead. I work for the Florida League of Cities, and before that worked for Leon County for about 10 years. This is probably my 5th or 6th year in the CHSP process, so I think it's incredibly valuable. We'll go around and introduce the rest of our team members. Samantha will be our timekeeper, and know that you have 20 minutes when she says start. And then we'd like to, I think, kick it off with your response to how you're planning the future with COVID in mind. And we'll address some of the other questions that the team members have proposed. So with that, I'll go ahead and allow the other team members to introduce themselves.
Hello, I am Margot Thomas. I am the program director for Take Stock in Children at Tallahassee Community College. And this is my 7th year as a CHSP team reviewer.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Burke. I'm the owner of Favorite Travel and Tours.
Hi, my name is Samantha Boge. I'm a lawyer and now arbitrator and semi-retired. And I'm your timekeeper, and I'm prepared to get you all started right now.
Okay.
All right, and Kim, I would also just let everybody know to make sure you mute your microphone when you're not speaking so we don't get the reverberation.
Is that the only, are there any other introductions that we were waiting on? I see it looks like there was a couple other people on the call.
I don't believe so. Well, we also have additional staff and county staff as well. And they're just listening in. You've got our four-person review team.
Okay, great.
Kim, I'm here. This is Mary Wellington.
Oh, hey, Mary, that's our board chair.
Yes.
Good for joining us. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. To your first question that you had about how we have reacted in response to COVID, we closed for 8 days, starting the Wednesday during spring break and the following week. During that time, administrative staff still reported to work. We worked on surveying parents, surveying staff, talking to our janitorial crew about extra cleaning measures. We were in touch with our licensing agents and spent some time looking at what it would look like after that. When we reopened our doors to our families who still needed to work and were in essential positions, we did a lot of different things, starting with the drop-offs looked different. Parents were dropping off at the door outside instead of bringing the kids all the way into their classroom. We did temperature checks at the door and a verbal survey. The children who were at the center went directly to one classroom where usually throughout the day, they would rotate through different areas in the center. We kept them all in their own classroom with their main teacher. And then at first, we did not use the common areas like the playground. Since then, we have returned using the playground, but in a little different way. Each class has their own set of outdoor materials that they take out each time. And then we have an additional staff member who's sanitizing slides and handles on tricycles and things like that. We did apply for a PPP loan for our staff. We've done a lot of staff development during this time. We did not charge our parents tuition for April or May. Starting today, since the school year's over as well, we did welcome back a lot of our families. We have 71 students here today and 88 accounts were billed and are expected to either come back this month or within the next month, but want to hold their spot. And so we're really trying to work with our parents who are still unsure about what their jobs have in store for them as far as returning back to work, and then still being able to open up additional spaces for other people in our community who really need care. Additionally, our teachers have implemented additional cleaning procedures in the classroom. They are wearing masks. I'm in my office with the door shut, so I don't have mine on, it's behind me. But we have been just really working on making sure that everything that we can do for the kids is routine, and we're sanitizing toys constantly and consistently. And then our meal service, we've also moved from doing a family style meal where everyone receives their own, everything's portioned out for beforehand and just given to them, and it's all on paperware and things like that, so that they can just go ahead and dispose of that instead of having additional dishes and that sort of thing. Does that answer your guys' COVID question?
Yeah, I think that was a pretty thorough response. If you don't mind, do you have the questions that were submitted by the team, or would you like me to? Okay, if you'd like to address some of those for the team. Yeah,
absolutely. So first, I want to thank the city and county for their ongoing support of the CHSP grant and process, and thank you to the citizens who have volunteered to review our application during this pandemic. We received 4 questions in response to our application. 2 of those seem to be very similar, so I was going to start with those. And those questions read, I am unclear as to the number of children served. Is it 10 or 167? This affects the computation of the cost of services, among other values. And then the second question, which seemed pretty similar, was in the program evaluation section, there's only mention of outcomes for 10 clients. Are you only evaluating outcomes for 10 of your clients, or should it have been for the total number of eligible clients? So previous to the split between the United Way and CHSP, we reported on slightly different outcome measures, last cycle was the first time that the Dick Hauser Center, DBA, the Learning Pavilion, was awarded funding through the city and county independent of United Way of the Big Bend. We requested $29,000 for the 2018-2020 cycle, and we were awarded $10,000. After we received our award letter, we were requested by city staff to meet and discuss and refine our outcome measures prior to the contract with the city being finalized. I worked with Pat Holliday, and upon her advice, we narrowed down our outcome measures to the number of students that would be served by the CHSP award of $10,000, which was $5,000 for each year. Our final contract agreement with the CHSP outlined that the funds would be used to offset the cost of 0.25 FTE of an early intervention assistant who specifically identified and worked with 10 of our VPK students by coordinating services, performing begin, mid, and end year assessments, holding parent conferences, and facilitating a kindergarten transition plan for the 10 identified students. We are instructed to report all clients served by our program in the demographic portion and to submit our outcome measures using the exact contract language with the city of Tallahassee, which included the 10 students. So this application is the first renewal cycle for us since CHSP separate from United Way. So while I completed the application, I used the format that followed our current contract and reporting methods, but we do consistently evaluate standards outcomes for all of our students enrolled at the Learning Pavilion and maintain data on site. Last year, that included 167 students. So we can certainly report on all children served moving forward if that's the recommendation of the CRT.
But the funding that you received directly from CHSP is where the number 10 figure.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys ready for me to go to the next question?
Unless there's a follow-up question, is that okay? Looks like I'm seeing nods. Nope.
Okay. So the next question said, how many children transition out of TLP to kindergarten each year, not provided in the application despite second year funding findings and award letter? So a total of 25 students transitioned from the Learning Pavilion to a kindergarten setting last year. TLP received a final readiness rate of 91.
Participant has joined the meeting.
2019 school year from the Florida Office of Early Learning. The score was not finalized at the time the application was submitted, but we are very proud of this high success rate. Of those 25 students, 21 of these students were enrolled through Florida's voluntary pre-kindergarten program, and 10 of these VPK students were identified to participate in the additional services provided by our 0.25 FTE early intervention assistant. This is the salary which is offset by the CHSP award. All 10 of the 10 identified students transitioned successfully and kindergarten ready last school year. Overall, TLP serves approximately 160 to 150 children per year. And again, we would be happy to work with the team to report on all of the children moving forward if that's the recommendation.
No, I think that's direct, well prepared. Team, were there additional questions, or Mary, would you like to add any additional comments?
No, Kim did just fine. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Mary. All right, so the very last question that we had was that there was mention that the staff time had been spent fundraising. Have you applied for additional grants to help fund the reduction in the Roundup program? And if yes, can you expound upon these efforts? Our primary fundraiser is the Roundup campaign, which is an element of our relationship with Goodwill Industries Big Bend. In agreement with the TLP board, the Goodwill board voted to launch the Roundup for TLP campaign in February of 2013. This gives Goodwill shoppers the opportunity throughout Northwest Florida to round up their purchases to the nearest dollar. All funds collected through the Roundup for TLP campaign directly benefit the Learning Pavilion. Facilitating the Roundup for TLP campaign entails point of sale programming, ongoing store manager and cashier training, facilitating incentive programs. However, over the last fiscal year, Goodwill has experienced a drop in overall sales in stores. TLP equally saw a drop in the money raised through the Roundup campaign. Hurricane Michael damaged or destroyed several Goodwill stores throughout the Western area. Once the stores were back up and running, we concentrated efforts to promote the Roundup for TLP campaign. As we started to see an increase in Roundup funding in response to our efforts, that increase quickly declined as we were faced with the national, state, and local shutdowns in March of 2020. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in addition to focusing our efforts on the Roundup campaign, we have secured a payroll protection program loan for $174,000 through Capital City Bank, which we project to be forgiven in full. A local emergency assistance for nonprofits lien grant in the amount of $2,500 from the Tallahassee-Leon County Office of Economic Vitality, a COVID-19 relief grant in the amount of $10,000 from
Participant has joined the meeting.
and a $2,000 grant for personal protection equipment from the Early Learning Coalition, the Big Band. And I just appreciate your guys' time again. And are there any other questions that I can answer for you today, or did I answer that last one fully?
I think that was answered very thoroughly. Was there other? Margot, Michelle. Michelle's raising her hand. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry, someone came in, she said, what was the figure for the 10,000? What was it for?
That was a COVID relief grant from the United Way of the Big Bend.
And how much was it?
10,000.
10,000 even?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, could you just run through real quick those dollar amounts real quick? I had 174, I had 10, I think I had
the 174 is the payroll protection program. So as we reopened our doors, even though most of our students come back, when we first reopened, we had about 35 come back out of the 125 capacity that we have each day. But we did bring back all of our teachers without doing any layoffs, and we really focused on professional development. We got several of our trainings that were previously done in person or on PowerPoint in video formats, so that as we move forward, we're able to do orientations and things like that more cost effectively and efficiently. In addition to the PPP loan, which we do expect to be able to be forgiven in full, according to our financial projections, we had the lien grant from the Tallahassee-Leon County Office of Economic Vitality, and that was $2,500. And then again, the 10,000 from United Way, and then 2,000 specifically to be used for personal protection,
PPE,
such as masks and things, from the Early Learning Coalition of the Big Bend.
Thank you. Well, I don't think I have any additional questions. You've answered them thoroughly, and we appreciate that. Succinctly, to the point. Team members, is there anything else? Samantha, I see we have a little extra time, but.
Yeah, you have over 7 minutes left.
Okay. No, but I mean, with that was very well done. Pat, is there anything else you'd like to add to the team? We appreciate, Kim, you working with the city and adjusting how you report your outcomes, because that's important. If you go through time, you respond to the comments. And Pat, is there anything else?
No comments. No, I don't. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys very much. Have a good morning and appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. You guys take care. Thank you, Mary.